Morning, students. Today's topic we are going to learn something about summarizing skills and note making skills. Let's talk about summarizing skills. Why do we summarize? We summarize in order to remember whatever we have read and to prepare for our examinations. And not only that, summarizing skills helps us in future also in any profession that we take up. Let's look at how we summarize.
Good morning, students. I am Dr. Anshu Surve from MS University of Baroda. As Bharti ma'am has talked to you today, we are going to talk about summarizing skills. When we make summary, these are some of the steps that we keep in mind while summarizing. That is how to write the summary. You read the material that is given to you in the form of an article or a book. Try and identify the main ideas for details. Write the ideas in the main form. While you are reading, try and underline the main phrases, the keywords, and then group them into a logical and coherent piece so that you can read the main ideas in proper order.
Yes. And this can be done either by having a pencil in your hand ready when you're reading the material, or you can have a separate piece of paper on which you can jot down all the words, phrases, or important keywords, which later on you can change with the help of all these words. You can form proper sentences and change it into a paragraph in your own words. Now, the first sentence that you write in a summary should be a topic sentence. That is, it should introduce you. It should introduce the central idea of the whole passage that you have read. And once you are ready with all the words or the key ideas that you have listed and you have formed the summary passage, what you should do is next you should be going through the summary that you have made, so that if there are any punctuation mistakes, grammatical mistakes, or there are any inclusions or subtraction that you want to do, you should be in a position to do that. Once this proofreading and editing is done, you are ready with the final copy of your summarized passage, which should be made in a very neat and clean handwriting.
The students also should keep in mind that the ideas that they have jotted down, they should evolve. There should be some connect in those ideas so that the summary is an evolved summary.
Yeah. Then only we can say that the paragraph has cohesion and it is coherent.
Yeah, it has unity.
Now let's see how to start with summarizing. How do we start summarizing? First we start looking for the main ideas. And how do you look for those main ideas, madam?
We keep a pencil in our hand and we underline the keywords and the key phrases. Also, what we can do is write the meanings of those keywords and key sentences, so that when we are finally making our notes, we write the notes in our own words. Then we read it again and list all the points. The listing can be done either on a rough paper or on the margins of the same books that the students are using. Another thing that the students should keep in mind is they should read the list over and again, so that the general purpose of writing the notes is served.
Yes. Further, what you should be doing is you should first form a topic sentence with after going through all the ideas that you have jotted down, the words that you have jotted down, you should be in a position to form a topic sentence that introduces the central theme of the passage that you have read. Now, a way of doing this is asking why the author has written a passage like that, so that the answer to which should be the central theme of or the central idea of the whole passage that you have read. Then you should again go through the whole passage as well as the words or the keywords and the notes that you have made in order to check the accuracy, whether you have not missed out a few important words here and there. And then you have to revise the summary so that you cross-check it that you have got the central idea exactly as the author would like to present it.
While reading the first few sentences, the student get an idea of the central theme. So the central theme should be jotted down and it should be evolved while writing the summary.
Yes.
Now we move on to our next slide. That is the support system for the support when we write the summary.
Yeah.
First support that we need to do is read the article again, list every probable example. For instance, if the writer has used some stories, some examples, illustrations to generate an argument, and that helps us understanding the argument. Make a list of the stories and the illustrations that have been used by the author, and while summarizing you can use them, prioritizing them accordingly.
Yeah. Apart from this, when we are looking at the when we are rereading the article, going through the whole thing again also helps you to see to it that you are not repeating some of the examples, you are not repeating some of the details.
And also you don't miss out some of the details.
Yes.
When we write the summary sentence, we introduce different categories of proof. Madam, could you please elaborate on the proof, on the word proof?
Yeah, it could be kind of examples, it could be some kind of explicit information that the author would like to give, or it could be some more in detail explanation of some particular topic that the author is making. And yeah, it could be representative examples.
Yeah.
And these are usually, we have to look for those kind of things which are very persuasive as well as which are common, so that it helps in making a connection to the topic sentence that we have already made.
And also the central argument of the paragraph.
Yes.
Now here we have the text for the summarizing. This is a text in which the writer has given a comparative account of his experience of how women were treated both in the Canadian society as well as Taiwanese society. This is a kind of a diary note and a diary writing, wherein he has placed his own personal experiences of his female friends in Canada, and how were they treated earlier, and how the gender bias has been avoided and women are treated equally with men
in the present Canadian society.
Yeah. Again, this is a continuation of the paragraph, wherein the gentleman has talked about certain gestures to show courtesy and respect towards women that were prevalent earlier. Like pulling out the chairs for lady, standing up when the lady is leaving the table, offered to pay the bills. But as time moved on, there has been a change in the attitude, and as there is no gender bias, there is gender equality. Now the women are treated at par and they also pay the bills for their own meals.
Yes. And this is the summary that has been done for the earlier passage that you have seen. If you look at the first sentence, it introduces you to the central theme. As madam said, it's a diary entry, so it tells you, the topic sentence tells you that it's a Taiwanese man who has lived in Canada, and it is his experience of what he has seen in the Canadian society over several years that he has spent in Canada. And as you move ahead, if you read the second sentence, it talks about the comparison that he is making, why he feels that the Canadian society, the women in the Canadian society are treated better than the Taiwanese women. And he also refers to some of the examples. There are many examples that the author has quoted in the original passage. I have taken up a few key ones, like pulling out the chair for the lady and paying the restaurant bills for the ladies. But as time passed, if you move on to the next slide, after the examples, the conclusion of there is a mention that now the Canadian society, the attitude has changed. Now the Canadian society sees both the genders as equal, and one of the key factors or one of the pointers to it is the example that he mentions towards the conclusion, which is a very apt conclusion for the summary also that we have done here, that now the women, because they are treated equal, they pay for their own meals.
I want the students also to note the number of words. and understand that it's summarizing is different from précis writing. The
Yes.
students, while summarizing, should not just pick and choose some sentences. Generally, our students, when they are unable to understand the paragraph, they pick the first or the second sentence, then they pick some phrases and words from the middle of the paragraph, and then they pick certain sentences and phrases from the end. So students should avoid picking and choosing such kind of sentences and write summary in their own words and stick to the word limit that they have been offered to.
Yeah, in a way, if the students are able to write the summary in their own words, it's an indication that you understood whatever you read.
Yeah, and you are not copying and pasting things.
Which is equivalent to plagiarism.
Yeah.
The next skills that we begin with is note making. Why note making, ma'am?
Note making is an important study skill, and this skill helps student consolidating the ideas that they have grasped while note taking. And I want my students to remember that note making is different from summarizing as well as note taking. Note taking is associated with listening skills, and note making is associated with reading skills.
And not only that, summarizing is a more formal kind of study skill, and whereas note making is something that you do when you're listening to a lecture or you're reading something for extra information. So basically what you're doing in note making is you're taking down your own notes. In a way we can say that it is because it is more casual, it is some kind of rough notes that you're taking down for your future reference. Now let's see how it is done.
Yeah. These are some of the note making tips. The students should keep in mind that, as we have just said earlier, they should avoid jotting down words from the books or the articles that they have read. So they should prefer writing notes in their own words, and writing in your own words, don't you think, man, it helps in understanding and it clarifies your concepts better.
Yes.
Second thing that you should remember is that you should write in such a handwriting and in such a manner that you can refer, when you refer back to those notes, you are able to read them and recognize them.
Yeah, and not only that, you are in a position to follow the logical pattern in which you have arranged the information. You should not confuse between which major point comes first and what are its subpoints, which major point comes next and what are its subpoints. Many a times we make our notes in such a clumsy pattern that we confuse between the major points and the minor points connected to each of them. So it's very important, as madam said, that it should be not only in a very good handwriting but also it should be in a logical pattern.
Right? Another thing that our students should know is that they should not write their notes in a clumsy manner. They should not cram and compress everything on one page. It should be well organized, it should be systematic, and they are able to refer back to the same notes and recognize their own handwriting. कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि आप लिखें और खुदा बाचे.
Yeah.
Now we should avoid such kind of things. Now, can you talk about the different styles of note making?
Yeah, there are many styles of note making, actually as many as you can innovate, but what we are looking at today here is some 4 styles of note making, the common patterns of note making. So let's see how that can be done. The first one is the linear pattern of note making. This is the most common one. What you do is that you find out the major points. Either you highlight the major points by writing in capital letters or you underline it, and you mention the subpoints below it. This is called a linear style of arranging the notes, as you can see the example on the screen, and this can be done with the help of numbering, or you can use the alphabet, or you can use some kind of bullets which is easily available on you have some idea about what are bullets and numbering as we use in computers. So something similar, you can put some kind of design to indicate what is a major point, which one is a minor point, as we have done here in the example that you see on the screen. The next one is, Madam, would you like to talk about
Yeah.
it?
The next slide is about another style of making notes, that is the mind map notes. And this style of making notes is generally for those students who are more creative and innovative in making their own notes. And this is a kind of a chain system that the students, a sequential system that the students may use, and one point leads to the other, as it is very clearly obvious on the screen that the students may divide the central theme into various sub themes, that is related theme 1, related theme 2 and related theme 3. Now again, if there are certain sub themes or the subtopics that the students have, they can again make a sequence and write the sub themes or the subtopics, so that it helps them understand the entire paragraph and also the evolution of the ideas in a much better manner. So mind maps are important while making notes, but again the student should keep in mind that they are not again copying the matter, they are writing the ideas in their own words.
And especially because it is a diagrammatic representation, as far as possible, try to keep it as short as just using words, the main words or maybe the main phrases to connect with each other. And if you have a look at the diagram again, it looks more or less like a spider web also, and that's also the reason why mind maps are also called spidergrams.
And it creates more visual impact, so it helps the students to remember more easily because of the visual impact created on them. Now shall we move on to our next style, that is making flowchart notes. Madam,
now,
would you like to
this
point
is
out?
again something where you want to make a sequential reference, a logical patterning evolution of the ideas. And as you see, what we have done in this example is we have talked about how you make notes and what is the end product of how it helps you in your future reference. So you start with making notes either by listening to lectures or by reading something like reference books or your textbooks. And once you have made your notes, there are two choices for you. Either you understand your notes depending on how you have made it, or you don't understand. If you are in a position to understand your notes, it helps you in preparing your assignments, preparing for your examinations, preparing your fair notes. And if you don't understand your own notes, it is an indication that you need to improve on your note making skills, which I'm sure that by the end of this lecture you would be in a position to do so.
Flowcharts also help our students to identify certain chain systems. For example, if we are talking about the process of communication, so the students can definitely make a flowchart regarding the process, how the idea generates from the sender, and how the idea gets converted into a message, and message is transmitted through a proper channel, and the message through that channel and medium reaches the receiver, and then there is a proper feedback. This entire process of communication can be easily understood, represented visually through a flowchart. Another example that we can give is when the students classify the types of communication. So again, when they are typifying those types of communication, they can make flowcharts like communication is divided into verbal and non-verbal, and again how verbal is divided into oral and written. So the same flowchart helps them remember the points very easily. And they with the help of flowcharts, they avoid cramming of the material. So the making of flowcharts helps them understand the concepts, the fundamentals and the basics of the ideas, and remember so that they can reproduce it whenever required. So flowcharts are of great advantage to all our students, and they are of great utility in note making. Now we move on to the
next one.
That is table notes.
Table notes. Usually table notes are taken in a situation where you have a passage wherein the author is making some kind of compare and contrast between various ideas or things. Like for example, if we talk about pollution, and if the author wants to give examples of want to differentiate between air pollution and water pollution, he can give details in the form of a table. You can take down the pointers or the examples and compare and contrast between both of them. Or similarly, like madam was mentioning this, if we are talking about the types of communication, again, if you want to compare and contrast between verbal and non-verbal communication, again, if you have a passage which discusses verbal and non-verbal communication, you can have a table like that where you are talking about verbal communication, its advantages, you are talking about non-verbal communication and its advantages, and you can jot down the points referring to the advantages of both and compare and contrast between both of them.
Both the notes. So table notes are important for comparative analysis, and it also helps improve your analytical skills and helps you arriving at a conclusion.
Yes.
So this can the students can further their note making skills into analytical skills and arrive at proper conclusion, which may be of great help when they pursue their higher studies, and if they adopt if they are doing some research work in the form of MPhil or PhD, then this helps them in understanding the topics and the themes much better.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at some.
We have, I think we should go back to some of our slides earlier,
Yeah.
where we would like to talk about the reduction techniques that we want to tell our students. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going back to our previous slides, where
Yeah.
we have talked about certain reduction techniques.
Okay. We have talked about the various styles of note making, but even within the styles, whatever style we use, there are some more ways of reducing your notes. As I told you earlier, that we make notes and it is more informal and casual as compared to summarizing skills. It is more of some kind of rough notes. So if you're listening to a lecture, or if you're taking down, if you're sitting in the library reading something, you cannot jot down the whole book.
Yeah.
If you feel that the information that the book is providing, or the chapter that you're reading, you find lots of material and you have very less time. So what you should be doing is you should be using these reduction techniques. Now, why they are called reduction techniques? Because actually they help you in taking down the notes in a more compact manner.
Yeah. Reduction techniques means reducing the matter, reducing the material in your own words and in your own innovative techniques.
Yeah.
And it not only helps them summarize this entire point or the entire paragraph, but it also helps them remember in their own, in a manner which they prefer to remember the notes. So while they are using reduction techniques, they should keep in mind that they have ample space and they have proper rough notebook or writing pad where they are using their own reduction techniques. And reduction techniques, the most important reduction technique is abbreviation.
Yes.
You know, we use abbreviations. For example, we have listed it on our slide that associated becomes assoc. That is the innovative way of writing associated.
That is, you create your own short forms.
Yeah, own short forms, your own acronyms as such.
But then, provided you remember what kind of short forms you made for different words, because many a times some words may have similar kind of short forms, which can confuse you later on when you go through your notes.
Yeah.
So as you can see, these are some of the reduction techniques, some of the abbreviations or short forms that you can create on your own for a few long, big words. And the next one is the standard abbreviations that we are having. I think madam would like to say something
There are
about
certain
it.
universal standardized abbreviations that we very often use while summarizing or note making. EG stands for example, IE stands for that is, NB stands for note, and hash stands for number. Now there are certain abbreviations for within, for without. You can also use some signs or symbols which are mathematical, but again can be used here. And again, what I feel, Bharti, that it depends upon the idea and the reading of the students, and also the presence of mind, how innovative and how different they can be. But again, I would like to warn my students that they don't get carried away in being different. They should not evolve or innovate such symbols so that by the time they refer it back when they are preparing for the examinations, they may forget the exact meaning of that same sign or symbol. So in that way, standardized symbol helps them remember. And standardized symbols are different from innovative
Innovative
symbols. So the
yes.
student should be able to make difference between the standardized symbols as well as the innovative symbols and use them safely and securely.
Yes, exactly. At no point you should forget that whatever notes you are taking down, it is for future reference. So you should not be in a difficult situation or a position wherein you are not able to understand your own notes at the end of the whole exercise that you are doing. Now, some more reduction techniques that we are having, as you can see on the screen. These are some common symbols, mathematical symbols that you can use, or you can use arrows. For example, if you see, if you want to indicate that something is increasing, you can indicate it with an arrow that goes on the top. If you want to say that something is decreasing in quantity, you can indicate an arrow down to indicate decreasing. If you want to connect between one point to another, you can show an arrow with a single head, that is, this idea is pointing out to the next one. Or there are many more symbols, as you can see on the screen. There is this mathematical 3 dots that we use, which can indicate therefore. An upside down one is refers to since. Then the next one that you can use is the measurements and figures, the mathematical figures. Any day, yes, you can use them also as a kind of reduction technique. And all the measurements, for kilogram we can say kg. We can, for meters we use MTS, for centimeters we use cm, and etc.
Yeah.
Again, so it's a small abbreviation ETC, which we are acquainted with. Yeah.
It's not that maths is far away from language and literature. Maths can definitely find its place in language and literature, but the students need to use these symbols in a very cautious manner. Another kind of symbols that can be used, as it is on the screen, is making your own abbreviations associated with the sound of the word. For example, education becomes EDN. Program becomes PROGM. So what we are doing is we are reducing it according to the sound. But again I want my students to remember is they should remember the full words, the complete word, and not get confused with the abbreviation. So there is a very a small hair-like difference between the full words and the abbreviated and the short form words. Yes. Yeah. And suffixes can also be retained. For example, if educational, as it is written on the screen, so educational can be written as ED apostrophe comma and NAL, where NAL is the suffix. Yeah. So students can reduce the entire word by just using the suffixes at the end. The same can be done with the prefixes. Yeah. Because so they can put an apostrophe comma and write CAUSE. So B is again avoided and the main word is retained.
Yeah, one of the common ones I remember my students do is whenever they have to write because, they put B and an apostrophe and CZ.
Yeah.
So you can be as innovative as you want to.
Another thing that we have found in our students is they are using the text language to write their notes. Yeah. So again, I would like to point out to my students that text or SMS language is appropriate when you are texting it informally, but when you are making your own notes, the students should definitely keep away from using the text language, because it may create confusion in the long run. Because another thing you should keep in mind is you are making notes so that you can refer back to them whenever required, and that will help you reproducing the ideas that you have gathered either in your exams or in your interviews or at any situation or in any context later. In the due course of time. So avoiding text language or avoiding SMS language is important, and this is a message from both of us to our students.
If it becomes habitual, it can land you in problems, especially when you are into a career or a profession. Present day organizations, they don't any kind of written work that you do is considered to be very formal. So if you are using, if you are habituated to use such kind of short forms in day-to-day basis, it can confuse not only you but also anyone who is reading your
summary or the notes
that you have written. So please keep this in mind, that you shouldn't be habituated. It should not become an addiction to use the text language all the time.
Yeah, because when you in an official setup, in organizational setup, you make notes and then you draft your report. So it should not be the case that the notes that you have made, the abbreviations or the SMS language that you have used, it moves on to the final print of the report. Otherwise, it not only lands you in an awkward situation, but it also gives an impression about you, what kind of a communicator you are. And I want my students to remember that non-verbal messages are passed not only through body language but also by the stuff that you write. So non-verbal communication is also associated with your writing skills. The way you draft, the way you write, that reflects on the personality that you are, your commitment towards your work, and also how systematic and how organized you are. If you are organized in your note making, that systematic presentation and organization will definitely leave an impact when you are making your final notes. So the students should keep in mind that it's not only their notes that are important, but also their personality and the impression that they create after writing their notes, finalizing their notes. That's also important, because the way you present your notes in your examination, it also fetches you more marks. So not only for the marks, but also for a better impression in your profession, you should keep in mind that you are making your notes properly, systematically, and in an organized manner.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we have already discussed the styles, and I would like my students to summarize what we have discussed today. Madam, would you please brief what we have discussed today?
We discussed about summarizing skills, and we have looked at note making skills. Summarizing is a study skill. It's a formal kind of pattern of making notes. Now, summarizing skills we use in organizations, especially when the boss is giving you some instructions and a full detail is given, or someone has made an oral presentation and you are asked to summarize the whole detail and prepare a short report on it. Or if you are asked to attend seminars, conferences, etc., you are asked to make notes and then prepare proper notes of whatever has taken place over there. So when you are actually referring back to your notes and you are preparing a report on the seminar or the conference that you have attended, basically what you are doing is you are summarizing whatever you have witnessed there, whatever you have been listening to there, and which includes everything. There can be direct quotations also, for which you need to give due referencing, like who said those words and in what context and at what time. In what reference it has been given. All kinds of details have to be given, otherwise it amounts to plagiarism. Plagiarism is stealing somebody else's words, which really leaves a very bad impression on you if it is found out. So you need to take extra care. Summarizing skills, as has been pointed out, you have to jot down the main points, read through and get the main points, then read again in order to find the supporting points, so that you are in a position to form your topic sentence, and also you are able to write at least a paragraph in which you have the entire logical idea that the author is trying to present, and you have the important examples, or you have the important details that the writer is mentioning in the passage, which you cannot exclude. And if there are any words or sentences which you feel are having a certain impact and value in themselves, you should be you may use those words or sentences as it is, but then you to it that you give it its due
recognition,
credit, its recognition, whose words they are. And usually, ideally, these kind of words or sentences, they are put in double inverted commas, so that they are emphasized in whatever summary that you are making, and the reader knows that these are the words of the original writer or the author from wherever you have taken those words. And just in case if the reader feels that he or she would like to know more about what the original author wants to say about and wants more details, can easily go back when you are giving the recognition, or you're giving the credit, you're giving all details about the book you referred to, the name of the author, the page numbers. It helps the person to go back and to read the original author, what he has to say about he or she has to say about the topic. It becomes easy for referencing, for future reference. And summarizing is very extensively used. Not only you as students will be using summarizing skills in your classroom lectures, or maybe when you are preparing for your examinations, but later on also when you join some organization or when you are into a profession, at every point of time you will be required to make summaries of after listening to something, or maybe after reading something, which can be used to take important decisions or to make certain changes in certain policies of the organization, etc., etc. All these things are summarizing skills do help in making your task easy, where if your boss is not in a position to read an entire report, for example, entire report that you have prepared, you may be asked to present a summary of it. So the way you do your summarizing, also it not only gives a very favorable impression on you as the employee, but also it helps the person who is reading to get a gist or the central idea of what exactly you try to present or what you are trying to say in your report. This is just an example I was giving. Madam, would you like to highlight on what we talked about note-making skills?
Yeah. Again, as these two are very important study skills, as we pointed earlier in the due course of our lecture, we have told you that note-making is different from summarizing as well as note-taking. I would again like my students to remember that note-making is not useful in your day-to-day lectures, but it also prepares you for professional performances. For example, if you are attending a meeting, then in an organizational setup, your habit of making proper notes in an effective manner, using all acronyms, short forms, the different styles, that linear styles, the tabular form that we have discussed today, the flow charts that we have discussed today, that helps you not only taking down the notes, but it helps you when you are converting those minutes of the meeting into a report. So developing the habit of note making not only helps you in preparing notes for your examination, but this habit, if you inculcate in these grooming years of your undergraduate and the postgraduate programs, as it is a part of your habit, when you join a profession, you don't need specific training. You have groomed yourself, and you use these study skills of note making when you are in any profession. And we have already discussed about the various techniques that we use in note making, as the reduction techniques we have talked about, the various acronyms, the various mathematical signs, the other symbols that we have mentioned that can be very handy while you are making your notes. Again, I would like my students to remember that when they are making notes, they should be as original, as genuine as they are. As you have your own personality, your own likes, your own preferences, your personality should get reflected in your notes. And I will again reiterate and emphasize that whatever you write speaks about your personality in your absentia. So the impression that your notes will make on yourself and in future on others makes you a good communicator. And systematically using the technique of note making helps you arrive at a conclusion through proper process of analysis, that is comparing and contrasting. It helps you arrive at your own decision, not just assuming things, but giving certain arguments in support of your statements or the statements that you have found or read in the books. So develop these skills of note making in the due course. And I think today's lecture might have been very fruitful to our students. They may again use various examples that they have in their books, follow the techniques that we have discussed today, and again keep in mind that summarizing and note making are two very different skills yet associated with one umbrella term, that is the study skills.
Study skills.
And
I think I would like to also point out to my students that this is a very good exercise which, as students, you should definitely make it a practice of either summarizing or note making, because it increases your concentration levels also. While reading or while listening to lectures, or when you are making your notes or summarizing, you need to concentrate on what exactly you are doing so that you follow a logical pattern in whatever notes you are making or whatever summary you are writing.
Another thing I would like to point out to my students is that it inculcates a proper reading habit. When you read with concentration, you do skimming. Skimming and scanning are two important aspects of reading. There are different types of reading, but keep in mind, when you are reading for either summarizing or note making, you are not reading fast, at a faster pace. When you are reading at a faster pace, you miss out certain things, or you arrive at certain assumptions which are not proper. You are not reading for pleasure. What is important for you to remember is you are reading for understanding, and that reading for understanding leads to reading for writing. So there are various steps that are evolved in note making, and as our students are definitely aware of the 4 macro skills that we have talked about, that is listening, speaking, reading and writing. These macro skills are quite important for us, because as they are a part of soft skills, and I want my students to remember that whatever you listen, it leads to note taking. Whatever you read, it leads to note making. So in a way, you are improving your listening skills, you are improving your reading skills, and at the end, when you write it in your own words, you improve your writing skills. One more thing, there are certain micro skills like analytical skills, like we have organizing skills, like we have negotiating skills, like we have conflict resolving skills, we have interpersonal communication skills, persuasive skills, assertive skills. You develop your own style of writing, and when you incorporate these skills in your writing, definitely your summary or the notes that you end up with, they are more emphatic, they are more assertive, they are more persuasive, and they serve the objective for which you have written either the summary or the notes.
Yes.
And with this, we come to an end of today's discussion. We have certain websites on us on the screen, and if our students would like to refer to those websites, they'll find ample material there for as examples, which they can either write the summary on, or they can make their own notes using these websites. So I want my students to know these websites and follow the pattern and follow up and write the notes and make summaries. Use whatever we have discussed today in a constructive manner. Thank you.
Thank you.